Here we are.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 13. Lucky
13.
Lucky number 13 of Dinner's going to be a little late tonight. I'm Patty Berry.
And I'm John Bailey from Two Dads with Baggage. And we've been cooking for weeks now. 13. That's amazing. Like, it's a thing. It's actually a thing now.
I hope so. I hope so. 13 is actually a lucky number in our family.
Well, we're getting several thousand people watching each episode, which I love that people want to watch and that we're helping them. So I don't know. It's a very cool thing. So today we are going to be making Italian sausage stew. So it's a very kind of rustic Tuscan dish with fresh vegetables and sausage and a bunch of other delicious things added in. So we're going to show you how to make that today. And you know what's really great about this dish is it freezes. It tastes great as a leftover. So it's very versatile.
Awesome. And we have a special guest today. I'm not doing the wine pairing today. Psalm Sydney is here live and in person. So you'll get to meet her and hear from the expert about today's wine pairing.
That's awesome. What did we do last week, Patty?
Oh, what did we do last week? We went to Chocolate Heaven. That's what we did last week. In honor of National Dessert Day, we made chocolate mousse, and I hope some of you made it. If you made it, let us know. In fact, I'm going to click on so I can see comments. It's super easy. It's delicious. It's not too filling. It doesn't mean it doesn't have low calories, but it doesn't feel like, as my father used to say, a real gut buster. It's a nice light dessert. You can make it ahead of time. It's great for guests. Or in our house, we just had it for dessert every night the rest of the week. So don't let it go to waste. So
we took a road trip last weekend to shelter in place elsewhere. And we went to Palm Springs, and I brought it with me because I had ramekins left, and we ate it there, and it was delicious left over a couple of days later. So it keeps. Who knew?
And travels. It travels well.
It did. It did.
Good one.
Okay, so let's get into this.
Let's.
So this is a recipe that my family has made for quite some time, and I've changed a little bit to make it a little bit more healthy and a little more fresh ingredients. But we use sweet potato and kale and onion and garlic and a bunch of other things that form this really delicious hearty soup. And, you know, it's fall, and the nights are starting to get a little chilly. And so it's kind of nice to have something warm in your tummy and comforting. So as the leaves change and the weather starts to get a little bit colder, these kind of dishes start to make sense. So we're making Italian sausage stew.
Yum. Is it getting colder in San Diego, John?
Well, today it's 72, which is a little colder. Yeah, it's getting there.
We're finally done with triple digits. But in fact, on Monday, it's going to be like 60 or something. It's wackadoodle.
Ooh, 60.
I'm going to get my coat out.
I think there's people watching that are from other parts of the country that are laughing at you right now. Ooh, 60. But your blood thins. When you live in a hot environment, you know, cold feels really cold because you get used to the kind of warm, temperate weather. I think. I'm not a scientist, but I think that's true.
Well, you have to be able to deal with 120, so, you know. Okay,
so what we're going to do is we're going to start up. I'm heating up a pot. It's this big, see? So you need kind of a deep pot because there's going to be a lot of things added and a lot of liquid. So you want, yep, Patty's got hers too. So we're going to start by heating up the olive oil, and then we're going to saute some chopped up onions. And, okay, I like this spoon. It's a wooden spoon, and it's got this flat edge on it. And because we're going to add the sausage in a minute, and we're going to break up the sausage, this is a really great tool rather than a rounded spoon that won't work as well when you're trying to break the sausage into little pieces. So,
found one.
Yeah. Oh, good deal. Mine's wooden, and yours is not, and it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
Depends on what you have in your kitchen. And really, it doesn't matter anyway. I'm just telling you what I like. So we're gonna saute those onions up, and we're going to add the sausage in a second. But first, we're going to add a couple of other ingredients typical to an Italian meal, right? You got to have your garlic. So I've got 2 cloves of garlic that I've already diced up and I'm throwing in. And then I've got my herbs. So Patty and I have had this back and forth conversation the last couple of episodes about fresh herbs versus dried herbs. And here's the deal, guys. Either works fine, either provides the flavor that we're looking for. I like fresh herbs because it works more quickly. And if you're going to eat the meal quickly, and you're not going to be cooking it for a long, long time and releasing the flavors of dried herbs, then fresh sometimes will work better. But in this case, I'm using fresh, and it doesn't really matter either way. So I've got 2 tablespoons of parsley, and so I'm throwing that in. I've got 1 tablespoon of fresh oregano, or dried, doesn't matter. And I've got 1 of fresh basil. So I'm throwing those in because, what's an Italian recipe without oregano and basil, right? And this starts to smell amazing. Like, it's so aromatic. Patty, does your kitchen smell good right now?
It smells so good. So, John, I am using dried oregano.
Okay. Well, see?
That I use.
And are you using the same amount, or are you putting more?
I think I'm going to start with less.
Less.
That's very oregano-y.
And again, we had this discussion about whether or not you use the same amount of dried versus fresh because of the strength of each. Sometimes when it's dried, it gets stronger, and sometimes it doesn't. And I can figure it out. So I just use the same either way, but we're still debating it.
Well, and Chef Copley, who I got some advice from here in Palm Springs, said, if you're going to let the dried herbs, like if you're making something that's going to simmer for a while, you probably want to use a smaller quantity because it's going to give them more time to rehydrate. And I want to make sure my oregano doesn't overpower the other herbs. Start with less. I can always add more.
Yeah, why not? Okay, the next thing I'm putting in is crushed red pepper. Optional, guys. We like a little spice in this household. So I put about, half a teaspoon of crushed red pepper. It says a pinch in the recipe, so it depends on, a healthy pinch or a tiny pinch. It's up to you. But red pepper gives it a little kick. And, when you're warming up your tummy, you want it to have a little warmth all the way around. Okay, stirred that in, and when it's done and ready for the next stage, which is putting the sausage in, when the onions start to get a little translucent. So they're not really cooked. They're just starting to get a little transparent and not quite so crunchy. And then it's time, right?
Yep.
Okay, so Italian sausage. Let's talk about that for a second. And I know, Patty, you have some strong feelings about this too. Personally, it grosses me out to buy an Italian sausage and then squeeze the meat out the end of it. It's just, I don't know. It just grosses me out. And you end up with this limp little casing at the end that's it's disgusting. However, it does work, and I do it. So I'm just saying. But I can also buy Italian sausage without the casing at the store, and that's what I did. So this is Italian sausage, but it looks like, it comes in the same kind of square like hamburger does when you buy a package of hamburger. So I'm throwing that in. Patty, did you buy the same?
I did. I bought that same brand that I talked about. We've used the sausage before. They also make awesome chorizo and also great just ground pork. So yeah, I love it. It's a brand from Anna.
And not every store has it. And it's fine if you use, this is just me and my own personal thing. It's fine if you use regular sausage. You just have to take it out of the casing. And even then, that's the way this recipe is made. But I'm going to tell you a cheat. You can just cut the sausage up into little pieces, and that will work just fine too. So if it stresses you out, no need. There's lots of ways to get around it. So while this browns, I'm chopping it into little pieces. I'm smashing it in the onion mixture so that it gets kind of fine and crumbly.
This is another great, I love it when you cook and you can release some stress, right? Get some anxiety out. I'm just pounding the crap out of this sausage right now, breaking it up. There.
Go ahead.
That's it.
Okay. So let's have a conversation while this is browning. We're not ready to add the next stuff in yet, but let's have a conversation about sweet potatoes, shall we, Patty?
Would you like to? Well,
Because I got very confused at the store, you guys, and I think the store set me up. I do. I think the store didn't know either, and so they just put a general label in the area of potatoes that are long and skinny and odd shaped because they weren't sure what is a yam and what is a sweet potato. And so I got very confused, and so I bought both. This is the difference. It's like there's this red one, and then there's this sort of yellowy white one. And honestly, I got dang upset in the grocery store. And I'm like Googling and trying to figure it out, and I was in a hurry, so I just bought both. So Patty, which is it? The red one or the white one? What is a yam? What is a sweet potato? I'm so confused.
All right, well, let me enlighten you, John, as I have so many times in our relationship, enlighten you about something.
And it's a good thing that you have so many opinions and good things to share with us.
And I love research. So I had the exact same experience as John. The other morning, I'm in the grocery store, and I'm like, and the sign said, I don't even know what it said anymore. It said like yam/white sweet potato, yam/red sweet potato. And I Googled it because I was going to text John, but I knew he wouldn't reply fast enough. So because I didn't want to hang out and wait for him to reply. So I just went for it, and I decided the red one looked cooler. So then I said, okay, what if I don't know, other people must not know. So I pulled out my little computer and put my life away this morning and did my research. So here's the scoop. Are you ready? Are you sitting down? If you don't already know this, sweet potatoes and yams, not the same thing. Sweet potatoes are not a type of a yam, and yams are not a type of a sweet potato. And
They're completely different things?
They're totally different things. And what's more, you've probably never tasted a yam. Oh, wait.
These are both sweet potatoes?
Correct. He's like jumping to the punchline. Are you getting this? Are you following this, you guys? So you've probably never tasted a yam. Sweet potatoes are a member of the morning glory botanical family, like the flower, the morning glory. Yams are related to lilies, palms, and grasses. And they grow primarily in the tropics and can usually only be found like in ethnic or international stores in the US. So, and here's the clincher. Neither one is a potato either. Potatoes are a part of the nightshade family. So what's the difference? And why are the grocery stores lying to us? Sweet potatoes, which John is holding two, have thin, smooth, and orange or white flesh. So those are both sweet potatoes. Yams, which we don't have a dark skin. This is the grossest thing I read, with almost a hairy texture. Ew. And the flesh inside is often white or purple. And you can find potato-sized varieties of yams. Yams can be 5 feet long. I'm 5 feet tall. There could be a yam as big as me, which is really disgusting.
A big, hairy, 5 foot long.
Oh, maybe on Halloween.
Yum.
I know. So compared to sweet potatoes, yams, which remember we've never really had, most likely, are starchier and drier. So John is holding the two kinds of sweet potatoes. There's the firm sweet potato, which is the other one. That one, that's the firm one. And they, after you cook them, they stay firm and a little waxy. The other one he's holding is the sweet potato, the soft sweet potato, which we all think is a yam, and that's got the copper skin and the deep orange. And that's the one you want to use because that's the one that becomes creamy and fluffy.
Okay, so I need to say, growing up, did your mom not make yams at Thanksgiving, like with marshmallows most roasted on top? Completely trailer, and I love it. I love it. Did your mom not make that? And it was yams, and it came in a can, and the can said yams.
Maybe my mom, the can sounds familiar. I wouldn't have eaten that. All I ate for Thanksgiving until I was like probably in college was the stuffing.
I think it's a yam conspiracy. I think the yam board is out to like fool us and market yams when really we're buying sweet potatoes. All right, so here's the thing, guys. This is the one you want to buy, the red one. And here's why. Because when you cut it, it makes this really beautiful orange-colored pieces that look like fall. Get it? It's fall. We're making a fall dish. This is a fall color. See? And
pretty.
Beautiful.
Pretty.
And it cooks faster.
Yay. So that's why you see it in the grocery store. I literally came across a thing that said common U.S. grocery store labels. Yams are the soft sweet potato with the copper skin and the deep orange flesh. The sweet potato is the firm sweet potato with the golden skin and the lighter flesh. But you heard it here. They're both sweet potatoes. Don't let it fool you.
I'm putting my sweet potato / yam into the pot with the sausage mixture now.
Right.
I'm stirring it up because that's going to cook in with the rest of our dish. And on top of that, go ahead. I'm sorry. Did you have something you want to say?
I just said yum.
Oh, and on top of that, I'm going to add chicken broth because that's what's going to cook the sweet potato. To keep correcting myself. Okay, so I'm putting in chicken broth. I'm putting in 3 cups of it. Now, you guys, chicken broth. How many of you are familiar with this little jar? It's called Better Than Bouillon. Have you ever used it before? Because what it is basically is super condensed chicken stock, where they make beef and vegetable and a couple of others. And so what you do is you spoon this out. It's soft. You spoon it out and you put it into a glass of water or a cup of water and stir it, and it makes chicken broth. Rather than buying those giant cans or those big cartons full of chicken broth that's already made, this sits in your refrigerator and you can pull it out whenever. And I use it all the time. Better Than Bouillon, and it's amazing. So there. They're not a sponsor. I just love it. So.
And that's great because how long does that last in your refrigerator? Forever? Well, not forever, but a lot longer.
I use it all the time. So it runs out and I buy more. But I think I go through at least one of them every 6 months. And I use the beef one all the time too.
Way better than having the carton in your refrigerator and having it go bad before you use it all.
That's right. Okay, so what is dinner's going to be a little late tonight without our special ingredient? So I am adding a half a cup of white wine. Doesn't matter what kind, as long as it's white. And I think, Patty, we should just remind folks who might be new to the show why the show is called Dinner's Going to Be a Little Late Tonight. And I'll tell part of the story and you tell part of the story. But we both grew up with moms that were fantastic cooks. And that's how we both learned to cook, by watching them. And they were amazing. They also like to nip now and then. Just to get through the day, and sound familiar? And so they did like a glass of wine, perhaps now and again. And my little Italian mom, 5 feet tall, I came home from school one day, and I was a teenager, so I was probably 17, and she was on the floor in the kitchen, holding her glass of wine, and she looked up at me and she said, "Dinner's gonna be a little late tonight," and I lost it. Right? I mean, I lost it. I thought that was the funniest thing ever. Patty and I have told that story back and forth for some 40 years, and a very long time since we were kids. And so we dedicate this to our moms who like to cook with booze. There it is.
Or drink booze.
Or drink it while they're cooking.
Yes. Yes.
So you will find that most of the recipes in our repertoire do contain a splash of alcohol in one way or the other. The good news is you don't need to put it in if you don't want to. It doesn't change the recipe if you leave it out. We've intentionally designed the recipes. So if you don't want to cook with alcohol, that's totally fine. Just leave it out. And here we are having a little glass of wine.
We are.
Okay, so I'm going to cover this up, and we're going to talk about wine for a minute, and and we have our special guest, and while our special guest is talking, we're going to add pasta noodles to the bowl. And you know what? This is like one of those things where you can add any kind of pasta you want. I got mini shells just so that they didn't take up a lot of room and it was easy to get a spoonful with all the different flavors. And you'll notice, what do you got, Patty?
Gemelli.
Gemelli.
They're so cute.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said gemelli and not gummelli.
Oh, please.
Gemelli.
Yes.
Gemm, right?
They were cute. I bought them.
I'm putting plain old pasta shells, throwing them in, and they're gonna cook for a little bit in this chicken broth. But let's hear from our sommelier while we are waiting for this to catch up with us.
Great pride and pleasure to introduce Sam Sydney, my daughter, sommelier, here from New York. So she is going to, rather than telling me what to tell you, you get to hear it from her. So come on in, Sydney. Cheers. Thank you for joining us.
Here I am. Wait, can you?
Cheers. Hi, Sid.
Hello, Dawn. Cheers.
Cheers. What are you teaching us today?
Well, I have a few things to talk about today. A little bit about myself, because obviously you've been mentioning me the last couple of weeks, which I feel very honored. A little bit about what to go with what you're all cooking today, and any questions that anybody might have, of course. So just to get started right away, I grew up in California, surrounded by wine and food all the time. A lot of influence from my parents, my dad in particular. So wine was kind of always my ultimate journey, I guess. And then I moved to New York after college, got involved right away in wine and the restaurant industry, and here I am now. I worked as a sommelier in New York City. Of course, COVID happened, so I've been home for a little bit, kind of relaxing, drinking some wine, doing some research, not working very hard, to be honest, but hopefully going to get back to work pretty soon. So I wanted to talk today about what to pair with the Tuscan stew that you're all making. First things first, I say a couple of things that I think my mother has mentioned in these different shows and episodes, is that if it grows together, it goes together. So if you're ever at a loss for what to do, what to pair, anything like that, you can absolutely think, hey, I'm making a Tuscan stew today. Maybe I can go find something from Tuscany. Almost always it's going to be great. And then on top of that, I'd always like to mention that if you like it, it's good. So regardless of what I say, regardless of what any other professional says, regardless of what your mom or your brother or whoever says, if you like it, it's good. It's simple as that. So I know that wine can be intimidating, wine can be scary, but it doesn't have to be. It just has to be what you want, what you enjoy with friends, family, whatever. And without further ado, I guess I'll talk about the pairings.
All right.
So I'll start with the white first that my mom and I are, just sipping to test it out. This is a Chenin Blanc. Can I set this here?
Yes.
Is that in the way? So today I'll bring this up a little bit closer.
Ooh, great. I've been to Loire Valley.
Yes.
And that is their specialty in that area, isn't it?
Yeah, so Vouvray is a region within the Loire Valley. So in case anybody's unfamiliar, and I will be speaking very broadly today, the Loire Valley is in the northwestern part of France. It's kind of just off the Atlantic Ocean, and then there's a river that runs all the way through it. It's quite long, very skinny, through the northern part of France there.
It's where all the chateaux are. So if you ever go to Paris, you can take the train into the Loire Valley and visit all the giant castles, which are chateaux, and drink amazing wine.
Exactly. And so Vouvray, like I said, is a place within the Loire Valley, sort of in the middle area. And Vouvray being the region, which is how France really talks about the majority of their wines, is always by the region first rather than the grape. We see the grape usually in New World, things like that. But what this means is that whatever grape is grown there, you can expect it to be in this area. So for this particular area, it's called Chenin Blanc, which is a white grape. So this is a white wine. It's all Chenin Blanc, or all Vouvray is Chenin Blanc. And you're going to get a really nice, beautiful, pear, golden apple taste in the beginning, a little bit of acidity, little minerality, and then a little bit of like this beeswaxy honey finish. And the reason why I chose it today to go with everything that's in the stew is, of course, we talked about the sweet potato, which is usually a pretty predominant flavor within different meals and things like that. So with that little bit of sweetness and the fruitiness of this wine, and it being a bit fuller bodied, it can kind of pair really nicely. In addition, there's a little bit of pork sausage in there and some Italian pork sausage, which usually has just a touch of spice to it as well. And because of that, something with a little bit more fruit, a little bit more body and sort of texture can kind of bring that down a little bit if you're a little nervous about spice. Also, if you did put too much of the red pepper flakes in and you're like, oh crap, a little bit of a sweet wine, not going to be a problem at all. It's going to tone it down right away. This particular winemaker is a 6th generation winemaker. They've been making wine in the Loire Valley for 130 plus years. So nice little family operation, which is usually what we see in France. And I just thought it was pretty tasty. So I'll be sure to post these on Two Dads Baggage, and dinner's going to be a little late tonight, and all sorts of other places that you can find them. And then the next one we have is the Ascension Ridge. Oh, there we go. I'm doing this backwards. I'm so sorry. Grenache, the 2017 vintage. So this is from Paso Robles, California, a wine region sort of in the middle there in California, if you're not familiar. And Grenache, I say that you can do Grenache or Pinot Noir. So if you're not quite ready to jump onto something like Grenache or something like that, no problem at all. Pinot Noir is something you can find pretty much anywhere from any place in the world. So if you're more familiar or like that more, not a problem at all. But Grenache in particular has this really great kind of fruit bouquet in the beginning, lots of like dark cherry, little Curon, all sorts of things like that. But it has this nice sort of more herbal, herbaceous finish, a little touch of like cinnamon and everything like that as well from a little bit of oak aging, especially in the New World. And the reason why I chose this, kind of a similar reason, with the kale and the herbs, oregano, all sorts of things that were being put into the stew, this is something the finish is going to really complement that nicely. But it does have a bit of tannin to combat that fat in the pork and all sorts of things. So it's also going to be something really nice. Not super heavy bodied, so it's not going to overpower. It's just going to go really nicely together. You can also experiment with getting some Grenache from Southwest France, which is really good value if you like something from the old world. Yeah, I think that's just about it.
That's awesome. Thank you I learned some good stuff.
Yeah, I hope so.
And I've been to both those places. So I know that I can source wine from a place that I've actually visited and tasted in that location. So yeah, pretty awesome.
I feel like you guys...
I have a couple of questions.
Oh, sure.
So Sydney, is there a New World equivalent of Chenin Blanc?
Well, you can get Chenin Blanc also in the New World. You see it a lot in California. So you can get anything from like Santa Barbara County, Sonoma County, are two places that I've seen. Otherwise, it is a fuller body wine with a little bit of higher acid. So it definitely can be compared to Chardonnay. So maybe you wanted to go somewhere to like Chablis that has 100% Chardonnay winemaking there, or other parts of Burgundy. Thank you, Joan. So you can kind of experiment with any fuller bodied white wine that has a little bit of acid as well. So yeah.
And then talk a little bit about Grenache for people who like Pinot. I mean, you did, but can you compare them a little bit? Because Grenache is your father, my husband's new favorite varietal, and he has become like this Grenache freak, honestly. And now everywhere we go, it's because of the Grenache. Yeah. This winery we just discovered when we were in Paso Robles a couple months ago on our little staycation. And I'm going to give them a little shout out. It's a small little winery. It's been around for a while, Ascension Ridge. Go visit John in their tasting room in the square in Paso and tell them, Patty, dinner's going to be a little light tonight, sent you. But why did Daddy get so into Grenache from Pinot? What's the connection?
I will say also this has a cool story because it's two friends who met from a wine appreciation class in 1995 and then started making wine together in 2002. So I thought that was like a sweet little story as well. But I would say ultimately Grenache and Pinot Noir, there's some kind of groups of grapes that sort of are all similar together, whether they have maybe some similar like body components, texture components, alcohol components, flavor components, whatever it might be. There are certain things that sort of group wines together. So that's why I feel like I love Chardonnay. Oh, we don't have it, but I have Chenin Blanc. Great, I'll try that instead because it's something similar, of course different, but similar enough where you probably are going to like that as well. So for my dad, which I think speaks generally to this across the board, is Pinot Noir drinkers are usually somebody who likes something a little bit on the lighter side, a little less tannin, maybe a little lower alcohol, that red berry fruit, really light cherry, rose petal, things like that, something like light and fresh, which are usually characteristics of Pinot Noir. And Grenache has that, but just a step above flavor-wise. So a little bit higher alcohol. It's a warm, it's a grape that is...
That's probably why your dad likes it.
It's a grape from a warm region, so it has a longer growing season. So it needs a longer time to get ripe. So it's usually in a hotter climate, whereas Pinot Noir is usually in a cooler climate. Has a little bit higher tannin for that reason as well. But it still, again, has some like darker cherry flavors, some like black raspberry, blackberry kind of flavors, and maybe a little bit more of that like sort of herbaceous, sort of like, think of a Luden's cough drop almost, where it's like not so like harsh as like a regular cough drop, but it still has that like great herbal flavor, cherry flavor, all sorts of things like that. And I mean, that depends, of course, on who the producer you're getting it from, the region, but generally speaking, and in terms of like me, when I'm like blind tasting and having to guess what these wines are, those are kind of markers that I use to try to figure out whether it's Pinot Noir or Grenache.
I love all the terms that you use when you describe wines. Like, I mean, like it's like a whole new world. You'll have to teach me more sometime. All right, let's jump back into this. Thank you so much, Sydney. That was awesome.
Follow me at Sydney on Instagram if you have any other questions or you want to ask more questions about the episode today.
Awesome. Thanks, sweetie.
Thank you. That was great.
Don't forget your book.
Okay, so we're gonna the pasta's almost cooked, and now we're gonna add our kale. So kale. Like for a while, kale was like on every menu you went to. Everybody was talking about kale. They were trying to put kale in everything. Like you get it in a shake. At McDonald's, practically there's kale. So it's like overdone. But kale is originally like it's an original Italian thing. And I used lacinato kale, which looks like this. It's very long and skinny and wrinkly, like, but not the really super curly kind. And I like it not only because it's from Italy originally, but also because it's mild. So it doesn't have a bitter taste. It doesn't leave a funny, weird flavor in what you're cooking. And I'm adding it into this dish because it will wilt and it will add some hardiness to the dish. But lacinato kale is also known as dinosaur kale because it grows so huge. Oh. It's called Tuscan kale. You've probably had it in a restaurant where they called it Tuscan kale. It's also called palm tree kale because the way it grows on a stalk and then it fans out at the top. So there's a lot of names for it, but basically it's lacinato kale and it's from Italy. And that's what we're using in this dish. And I'm mixing it in just at this point that this pasta is almost done. And so the kale is going to get limp and then we're going to go and we're almost done, guys. So we want the kale to cook for a couple of minutes as the pasta finishes. The pasta soaked up a lot of the juices. So now it's starting to get like thicker, like a stew. It's not a soup anymore. It's like a stew because the pasta cooked in the delicious chicken broth. And the last thing we're going to add is some white cannellini beans. So again, an Italian white bean. You can buy anything. They call them all sorts of things. Pinto beans, white kidney beans. Cannellini beans are from Italy. I literally just opened a can, a 15-ounce can of cannellini beans that I bought at the store, and I'm throwing them in at the last minute. They don't need to cook. They're already cooked. So we just throw them in at the last minute so that we can heat them up. And this is looking and smelling amazing.
And drain the beans, John. Don't forget to say
Oh
that.
yeah. Oh yeah. Sorry. So I forget. But yes, when you buy a can of beans, you're not meant to just dump the beans into whatever you're cooking. You're meant to drain them and sometimes rinse them because they have that weird liquid that they're sitting in the can that they make themselves. They're probably originally put in water, and then the beans kind of make this syrup, this thick syrup, and you need to get rid of it. So we just have the beans and not the syrup.
And then our last thing, John, a little S&P.
A little salt and pepper. Thank you. Yes. Can't go without that. And you know, we've already put the red pepper in, but that's different than black pepper, isn't it? So red pepper gives it a kick, but black pepper gives it that flavor that we're all accustomed to.
I'll put in some red pepper, but I'm a spice weenie, despite my Cuban roots. So I only put in a little bit.
I know you're funny that way.
That's the Irish side.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Well, that's why you know so much about potatoes, huh?
Well, remember, yams and sweet potatoes, they're not a potato.
Sydney's a big hit. I love it. I just love that Sydney, and you know, we're also fond of Sydney, and her knowledge about wines is impressive. So she's taught us all. And now I drink more wine than ever because of Sydney.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll tell you the funny stories about me and Sydney in New York City. But our stew, our Italian sausage stew is done. So I'm going to show you what it looks like. It's so colorful and delicious. And it's like my family loves this. So this is what it looks like. It's not, I know the lighting's kind of shitty, but it's got that orange sweet potato, the green of the kale, and the sausage all crumbly, and the white beans and the pasta. And it's really a very colorful, delicious dish. Super easy. And again, like I said earlier, very easy to store. Oh, Patty, that looks beautiful.
Thank you. I did the little Parmesan cheese on the edge because I'm fancy.
You are fancy that way. It looks like a restaurant. So it freezes. It's great as a leftover. It holds up, so it doesn't get all mushy later.
Oh.
My kids love it. It's the way I get them to eat fresh vegetables without them really knowing it. So they don't even pick out the kale. They actually eat it. That's
awesome. It smells amazing. I can't wait to try it.
And it's really great if you crumble some Parmesan cheese on top. Sprinkle. Everything tastes better with Parmesan cheese. So, so there you go. There's our Italian sausage stew with kale and sweet potato and sausage and all sorts of other delicious things. I hope you make it. And we would love to hear from you when you do, and let us know how it turned out in your kitchen.
Yes, that was also really fast because Sydney had, spoke for a few minutes. Well, that was while I was cooking though. So yeah, that's half hour out the door once you prep your ingredients. I love that. Well, I'm looking forward to it, even though it's not cold at night here yet, but it still feels like fall.
And it honestly, it comes together in 30 minutes or so. Mm-hmm. It makes big servings, so you'll have plenty. If you're just 2 people at home, just cut it in half. Just make half as much of the ingredients. It's simple. Just cut down the middle, and you'll just have enough for 2 and maybe a little bit of leftover. So awesome. Thank you for showing up. Next week, we're on a break, right, Patty?
Yes, and this time we really are. I know we told you a couple times that we were going to be, and then we weren't, and we were. Next time we really are, because I'm going to Kansas City, Missouri next week, where it is going to be 37 degrees.
Well, there you go. You need to bring a little knapsack with some this stew on the plane, right? And, I hope that you're going to come back with at least one barbecue recipe for us to make on the show.
Well, we are hoping to go somewhere, and if we get there, which we're planning on it, you will watch the dinner's story. because we'll be doing, Sydney will be with me. We'll definitely do a story. I'm
All
so
right.
excited. So fingers crossed we get to pull that off. So thank you so much for joining us and heading into fall together. We started in the summer, now it's the fall and the holidays are ahead. We got some great ideas for some episodes for the holidays too. So stay tuned, please share, like, and join and whatever else you're supposed to do. Dance a jig, I don't know.
Yes, please follow and share.
That's the one. Follow.
And the recipe, this recipe will be available in a couple of hours at twodadswithbaggage.com. As soon as we get our pictures processed and loaded into the blog, then you'll be able to access that recipe. And you can always watch this show again later. So thanks for joining. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Dinner's going to be a little late tonight.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks. Bye. Ending. We're ending eventually.
It's still on. Are we still on?
Yeah. Bye, people.
Why is it taking so long?
I don't know.
Why it's still here? So
It's trying to end.
oh,
It has trouble connecting.
oh, it's having trouble to connect to end.
What are we going to do now?
Thank you, Elise and Adam and Julia and Michelle. I want you to know that Michelle
And Joan. Don't forget Joan.
Oh, I said Joan. Michelle was Sydney's babysitter.
All right, thanks, guys. I don't know why this isn't ending, but we're going to leave the studio and let you go on with your day.
All right.
Thanks very much. Bye.
Time.